started because I'm gonna end up taking all of your time because I really like this stuff. It's 10 o'clock, so my talk is about subversion and espionage directed against you. I was a counterintelligence agent in the Army for 6 years. This is what I studied. It's amazing that I could bring this kind of work to the cyber world and how it's being used against you and your everyday job. I got motivated by this. In the last 2 years, I came here to DerbyCon, and I went down to the SE village, the social engineering village, right? And I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't really, whatever. And so I started hearing them talk, and they were talking about how, as social engineers, if they do their job really well, you get fired. And that's kind of made me mad when I heard about that, because they're using tried and true techniques against you that I was taught as a counterintelligence agent you were doomed to fail to begin with. But you're going to get fired over it. So it kind of made me realize you guys need to understand what you're facing. And if you've been paying attention to the news, and we'll go over a lot of that, you'll see that this is going on every day. It's probably your coworkers if you're not paying attention. And it could end up being you. And I'll talk about some of the reasons why you can get targeted and used to commit espionage against the people that you work for or your country, right? So real quick, though, I don't want to be too serious. How many of you are willing to admit you serve in the military? Who? No. Okay, okay, I served in the Army, so I'm going to go hua if you served. So, the rest of you in the other branches, you know who you are. But, so, Army, but so I served during the Cold War, before the wall came down. I was in Germany when the wall came down. And this is a movie called The Bridge of the Spies. Yeah, I think it's Bridge of the Spies. Tom Hanks, it's a really good movie. It's about a true story. I've been on those bridges. The bridges cross the countries between East Germany, former East Germany, sorry, and West Germany and Czechoslovakia and Germany. I have stood on those bridges. The river is the border crossing. And these things did occur. We did transfer spies over the bridge. It's a very good movie. Highly recommend. It's about a true story. And these bridges do exist. I've been on them. So a little bit to let you know, espionage. This is not it. I did not see any of these men dressed like this, and I didn't know, and they didn't teach us to dress like this as women. But it's really cool. But what happened is last year when they were doing a talk down in the SE Village, one of the red teamers was talking about how when he went to a bank, the pen test was to go get the server, go be in the data center, get into the data center and get to that server in the data center for a bank. So instead of going to the headquarters, he went to one of the branches, and he knew he showed up early enough that he could watch all the employees as they walked in. So he profiled the employees as they were walking into the office, so he knew which one he was going to approach and social engineer. So he goes up to one of the tellers, and he said, I want to create an account. Will you help me out? He's dressed in a nice button-down shirt, nice pair of khaki pants, right? Sure, come over here, I'll help you out. What can I do for you? And as they started, he said, I need to go, can I take a break, go to the bathroom? She said, sure, it's down the hall. When you're done, come back and we'll finish it up. So when he walked out of the men's bathroom, he stood down apparently long enough that she got distracted with other customers. So he walked out, and there was an empty office across the way. He went down, sat down, and started hacking at the network. He was in there for an hour before anybody started paying attention to him because he looked like he was from the home office. The home office shows up all the time. You don't know everybody who walks in. So he had been in there for about an hour before the bank manager went in there and said, who are you and what are you doing? And that's when they discovered that he had been hacking at their network for an hour inside the bank. They fired the teller. That was what upset him, because he's like, I do my job right, they fire you. And I walked away getting a little peeved about this. And then he talked about another story, and he said that same thing, he had to go into a data center, but this time they had 24-hour guards outside the data center. So he struck up a friendship with the senior guy on shift. And he talked to him for an hour, and he said, he pretended to be a fire extinguisher inspector. And he knew there was a fire extinguisher in the server room where he needed to go. But he had already done the perimeter, and so he struck up a friendship, or talk with the lead guy. And he had to get past him to get in the room. Both of them are veterans. They both served near each other. You know, they ended up hugging each other before it was over with, what he said. And he goes, you know what, I got one more extinguisher. I need to be in that room. Can you help me out? Can you get me in there? Yeah, sure, I'll walk you in there. I'll escort you in there. He did. For some unknown reason, he got a text message to leave. The guard did. So he left. He goes, I'll be right back. I'll leave you in here. I'll be right back. That was the winning ticket. He found out the next day they fired everybody on the shift. They let go of that company that was doing the security guard. So that's where I was, got a little going, you did not train them right. You get an hour of security awareness training a year for compliance, but you do not change your behavior in 1 hour of training a year when you're doing your job every single day that doesn't do with that, right? So I was driving away from DerbyCon going, God bless, you know, you guys are facing an adversary that I was trained as a counterintelligence agent. This is, you're not, I'm sorry, they're good. And they know what they're doing, and they will use you and your personality against you to get what they need. And that's just pen testers and red teamers, much less nation states, China, Russia. A guy, I'll quote you a quote, Vietnam. But this is what I came across this article as I got home, and I love this because it's not security awareness. I need your behavior to change, right? How many times, and I did this the other day, I couldn't believe it. I clicked on the freaking link. You've been pissed. You know, but we still do it. This is our, you know, we still do it. And so we need your behavior to change. So what I want to try and do, instead of security awareness, we need behavioral infosec. We need your behavior to change because you are our users. You are our last defense. If they made it all the way down to you, they got through everything else. And that's another thing. If you'll ask a red teamer, if I can't get through your network, I'm showing up in person. And it's game on. And it is you against them, and they're determined to win, and they will. And I'll tell you some stories where they use things. I was a little surprised to win because it's a game. In my opinion, it's a game. Edward McCabe, I love talking with him, and I love his quote, my zero-day exploits are your employees. He's a red team company, pen test company. My 0 days are your employees. I don't have to know technology. I don't have to know code. I don't have to know Python. I don't have to know what even your perimeter is. I just have to know you. And human behavior, you've been studied. It's all in books. You're easy to figure out, I'm sorry. Most of you are guys, too. It's easy. I'm sorry. I'll tell about why I love it. But the InfoSec, you know, and the reason part of it is I'm a little passionate about this, because if I'm going to get fired because I was social engineered, no, damn it, you used tradecraft against me. I was set up for failure. You compromised my principles or whatever. You'll hear a story about how someone did that. But you need to become enlightened about you and you as an individual and what you're going to face. And this is somebody, Sophie Daniels, somebody I would follow on Twitter. She freely says how she was able to social engineer and do her red teaming and get into that server room, get into where she was supposed to be. And the thing that got me is, this is a blog she put up. I did lock picking, dumpster diving, climbing over walls, barbed wire, got to play with cool gadgets. All right, well, I have to admit, as a counterintelligence agent, I didn't get too many gadgets, but I had to do the rest of it. I did do dumpster diving. I did find classified secret information going to war plans in the dumpster. I did climb over fences so I could get to that dumpster. And luckily it wasn't barbed wire, but I've been through those before. But you ought to watch her on Twitter, because she talks about how the things that one of them is, she showed up dressed up nicely to work. She needed to get in. She had a badge. She knew what the badge looked like to get in, but it wasn't scannable, right? It was a fictitious badge. So she came in with donuts and something in her hands. Oh, my hands are full. Can you help me get in? And, oh, yeah, the guy's like, sure, I'll scan you, let you get in. They scanned her all the way in. My hands are full. I can't, And so we're really a very nice society. We do, do the nice things, and pen testers, red teamers, and nation states will take advantage of those to get into a facility that is locked down. So be mean to everybody who wants to, tailgate you into the office. I did that the other day to somebody, and because I didn't recognize him, and he got mad and started chewing me out. I've been here. I'm a contractor. I've been in this room. And I'm like, please just scan your badge. That's all I'm asking. You followed me in. I want you to scan your badge. I'll hold the door, but scan your badge. He spent 5 minutes chewing me out for doing it. He was allowed to come in. He finally scanned it, but he chewed me out for it. I'm like, I don't care. Scan it. Do you realize what floor you're on? Scan it. So make people mad if you have to. Yeah.
I'm a contractor, and I had to do that to a GS-15. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know you. You need to scan your badge or I can't let you pass.
Exactly.
And he looked at me, and he said, really? You don't know me? I said, yes, I'm sorry, I don't know you. Please scan your badge. And he did, and then he thanked me. So not everybody's an asshole.
Thank you. Very good. Very good. Follow her. She talks about it. She's very good. Why use social engineering? Well, you know, I'm using the words because that's what you're familiar with. We use it because it works. And this is a quote: there is no patch for an untrained user, and even an experienced security professional forgets in the heat of the moment to follow what they've been taught. I clicked on the link last week. I was so pissed. They were, you know, I have to say that was pretty good what they did. It was pretty good, and I was busy and wasn't paying attention. Social engineering, I thought the word really was a 21st century word. I didn't realize it had been around since the turn of 1900, you know, 1899. We don't use it as much, right? But any act that influences a person to take an action that may or not be in their best interest. Chris Hagney, he's here. I recommend you go, you know, listen to what he's doing, and just realize the common everyday things they're using against you as a red teamer. In any red teaming effort they're doing, also nation states, and even other businesses. Well, I'll cover some of the businesses that are targeting you to learn the secrets of the business you're in, and these are U.S. companies on U.S. companies. One of the stories, this one freaked, okay, I won't say that word. I was a little disconcerting when I realized how far a red teamer would go. Last year they had a panel and they were talking to them, and they asked them, said, how far would you go as a red teamer to compromise somebody, to get them to talk, to get your goal? It was kind of funny that one of the gentlemen, young man, he goes, look at this. Who can deny this? And I swing both ways. I was like, wow. Woo, okay. And that's just a red team company. That's not a nation state. And so I walked out and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I'm like, did you see it? And he goes, I got one better. This is what we did. We were supposed to get the system administrator's user ID and password, which happened to be a young man on the network. They profiled him, and they noticed on his social media that he liked the women. He was either recently married or his wife has just got pregnant or just had a baby, one of the two. He hadn't been married very long, but they noticed apparently from his social profile that he was interested in women. So they had a beautiful woman on the red team. She was a lesbian. They asked her, would you be willing to compromise him? She said yes. So she showed up, became a co-worker of his at work. I'm not sure how long they started working together. When she finally convinced him to meet her at a hotel room, I guess it was a motel, because they took pictures of him walking up to the door. She showed up, then he showed up. They got pictures of her going in the room. They got pictures of him going into the room. She got into sexy lingerie because they have pictures of her in the room in sexy lingerie with him in the door. He walks in, shuts the door. She goes, I'm not going to do it, but I don't need those pictures, right? So the next day, he gets to work. He gets a demand. Give us user ID and password to the network. He said, no. The next day, they sent him pictures of him at the hotel room with her in sexy lingerie in the room. We're going to send these to your wife and your boss. Give us the system ID, user ID, and password. Okay. Pen test over. We have won. Red team, and I didn't have to know a lick of your code. I didn't even have to know what your perimeter looked like. I showed up and took it out on you, right? How much code did you have to know to do that? And I was like horrified. I'm like, really? You know, you might have just got him a divorce or something. And he, you know, and he goes, what I did, the reason we did it is one, and you have to think about it, the company wanted him to be targeted. We want your system ID to the network. So they targeted the young man, the company did. So he goes, I proved to them they didn't have any protection to protect this young man for whenever he got into this kind of compromising situation. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know any policy at any company that would cover that scenario to help you out. I have never seen one. I've been doing business for 20-something years, and I've never seen a policy that says, if you've been compromised sexually, you were to go report this to so-and-so. And I've asked CISOs, do you want to know when this? No, I don't want to know that. But apparently they didn't know what the kind of pen tester or red team that they were going to get done against their system ID, their sysadmin. Now that is a U.S. company using that against one of their own employees. Scary. Espionage has been around since the 1700s, which I think it's been around longer than that. Gathering and transmitting or losing information related to national defense, that's technically espionage. As a counterintelligence agent, if I've read people their rights, I've had to, I won't say interrogate because that's a different team that does that, but I did have to question people about their activities that led me to believe to bring a charge of espionage against them. To do that, you have to have, or you have actually handed the information over to another entity. Non-U.S. entity, most likely, and they can be friend or foe. Israel. We have a guy that just got out of recently on a life sentence because he gave information to Israel. They're a friendly country to us. He got charged with espionage in the 80s. He just got out. He did get a life sentence, and I think one of our presidents pardoned him, which is okay, I think. Nobody got killed over the information that he handed over, but he still gave it to a non-U.S. entity. And it's the handing off. I have to have evidence of you handing it off. I almost have to watch you do it to bring charges of espionage against you. The cases that I worked on, because if I couldn't find that an image or be witnessing that, you got charged with mishandling classified information, got an Article 15 and kicked out. Spying, some of the illegals program, if you remember this a few years ago, the reason it was called the illegals program, these were 10 Russian nationals that came into this country illegally and assumed U.S. citizen identity. They took dead people's IDs, children, whatnot from years ago. Nobody questioned it. We sent them back, and I'll show you a video on some of this, but we sent them back and let Russia know that we knew what you were doing. They were doing this during our last, I guess it was the re-election, 2010, 2015. It was a re-election. One of these, where's the woman? Right there, her. These two are husband and wife. I'll show you in a minute. She was the one, she's an accountant, and she was getting too close to certain individuals in the Democratic Party, and that's when the FBI called a halt to it and said we need to stop it because an election was going on. And they're getting a little bit too close to people. And this one, I'll show you pictures of her later. Our Vice President Biden was upset when she got sent back. He knew her that well. I don't know how well, I'm just saying he knew she was missing because he goes, I'll miss her being around. He was an ex-CIA officer. He got caught earlier in this year. He'd given over, I hate to say it, that is a colleague, as an agent. He got charged with selling secrets to China. They caught him with the money in his bag in the hotel room in China. Subversion has been around quite a while. You guys remember this happening? And I'm going to read you something. And I didn't realize, I thought it was Chinese, but it was a Vietnamese guy that was working at NSA. He took home classified information, or took home some of their, the shadow brokers released, right? He worked on the team, the TAO team, very highly classified, highly skilled group of hackers that work at NSA. That's where he worked. He took their stuff home. He put it on his home computer. He had Kaspersky antivirus running. Kaspersky, if you don't know it, is a Russian company. The president is ex-GRU. He says he doesn't work for them anymore, right? Like you don't do that anymore. And so because what they have, if you use Kaspersky, they have triggers on their software. If they see certain executables running on your computer, they take a copy of that and send it back to their servers to review. Well, for 5 years, they've been copying things that he was storing on his computer and sending it to Russia. He says he didn't know. I kind of believe that, but I think he was doing other things for other people. So I'll read to you. This just came out yesterday. This is his defense. He's 68 years old. He wanted to retire. He was due to retire in a few years, and he said in a letter to the judge, I wanted to retire at a higher pay grade so to increase his pension payments. Hold on. He took home the classified hacking software tools and documents and stashed them in various places around his house in order to get a better performance review. Right. He felt that he needed a boost, given that his English was shaky and he had limited social skills, impediments that kept him from properly learning about the hacking tools that were part of his job. So between 2010 and 2015, he took home top secret information. I'm assuming he was reviewing it, but just to let you know, that defense has been taken. You might want to use a different one, because that's...
I'm just wondering how you're going to get the bullshit off of your screen.
I know. He got 5.5 years. He got 66 months. It just came down. And he got 3 years supervised at the other end. Personally, what I think it was, he got a job with NSA, and I think somebody approached him and compromised him. And I do believe he wants to make more money in retirement. So he probably did another way than in a pension plan. You know, for 5 years, you're taking it home to improve your rating and your GS grade, right? So that's kind of interesting. But I think, in a way, I call that subversion, because Kaspersky really didn't tell you that they're monitoring your anything you have on your laptop. They are making a copy of it and send it back to the home office. And I'm pretty sure they're not the only ones who are doing that on any software that you have installed on your computer. Uber, if you heard about Uber that happened earlier, this is the part that I like. What happened is Uber had employees at one of their competitors as employees over there handing back information to Uber. I want to say it was Lyft, but they had employees in the company that were taking their ideas and sending it back to Uber. So Uber knew where they were standing with their competition. But this is their new general counsel. What he told them after he took over, after this became public knowledge, to be crystal clear to anyone that is working on any kind of competitive intelligence project, I like how we call that, it's spying, that involves the surveillance of individuals, stop it now. He was telling them, stop the espionage efforts, stop the subversion efforts. We can be competitive other ways than you going over there and stealing the information from them. That's a U.S. company on a U.S. company. This one is interesting. A Chinese-Canadian national. He came down to a company. Med Robotics is a U.S. company. They make body parts. And they had been approached many times in the past from China. They wanted to have, we want to invest in your company. Well, yeah, you want to take my secrets, but, I want to invest. And they kept turning it down. No, I don't want to do it. So one day, the president of the company, he was walking out into the day. He had to walk by a conference room to get out. He noticed this young man, or this man in there, had 3 laptops open going at it. So he stopped in. He's like, can I help you? And he goes, oh, I'm here to see the CIO or whatever, the CTO, not the CIO. And he goes, well, he's not here. Well, I'm here to see another, and he goes, well, he's out of the country. Well, I'm here to see the CEO. And he goes, that's me, and I don't have an appointment with you. What are you doing? And that's when he called the FBI, found out that he was in there trying to connect to their network so he could download their secrets because they weren't willing to do it the other way. But his argument, I really like this point, his argument in the court papers said that he suffered a brain injury in an accident in 2012. This is his defense of why he was doing this. When he was a partner at a Chinese patent law firm, that he was struggling to accept the fact he was no longer brilliant. Okay, that's been taken now, so if you need that as your defense, you might want to come up with another one. That's really, lawyers, God bless you guys, you can do this, but without laughing, I'm going to defend you, and this is what your defense is going to be, okay? So let's see if this starts. Damn it. Come on.
Counterintelligence is we're up against the most sophisticated enemy in the world. Super secret spies living next door. They look like us. They speak better English than we do.
How you doing, Stan Beeman?
My wife, Elizabeth Page Henry.
Hi.
What do you do, Stan?
I'm an FBI agent.
Have to make sure I don't do any spying around here.
The Americans is a somewhat sensationalized version of Soviet espionage in the United States. In fact, most Soviet spies in this country were Americans, not Russians, posing as Americans, and they didn't engage in murder, kidnapping, the kinds of dramatic episodes that appear on the Americans. Well, the Soviet Union had 2 kinds of agents in the United States. The first kind were legal officers who would be attached to the embassy or a consulate. Then there were the illegals, who were people that came to the country, into this country illegally and lived as ordinary Americans. The couple in the series are illegals, that is, they are Russian citizens who are in this country illegally, posing as Americans. They have jobs and they spy on the side. When the Soviet Union recruited illegals, they were looking for people that were ordinary, that could blend into the United States.
I fit in like I'm supposed to.
One of the advantages of recruiting people for the United States is that this country has a very diverse citizenry. So even somebody with an accent, say, can still pose as an American. The most important job that the illegal performed for the Soviet Union was to serve as couriers. The advantage of an illegal, he's in the country illegally, the FBI doesn't know who he is, he can meet with sources, pick up espionage material, and then he has to meet with somebody else to transfer it. But it's the anonymity that's important. Occasionally couples would serve as illegals. There were instances where you had couples who were not illegals, they were actually Americans spying for the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union then attempted to recruit their children as spies.
The center started a program to develop second-generation illegals.
They want age to be next.
The illegals were not executed. The United States and the Soviet Union had a kind of implicit deal that they didn't do that sort of thing, which is also why one of the themes of the Americans are, you know, all these assassinations and so on. Occasionally it happened, but it was quite rare, and certainly not in the 1980s. Countries never cease spying. Russia has historically used illegals. No doubt they will continue to use them, but they're very expensive, and it costs a lot of money to train them, and it costs a lot of money to maintain them.
Counterintelligence is the most sophisticated.
I'll tell you something. I was at DerbyCon in Black Hat, and there was a GRU. Is it Bartowski? Is that his name? Last name? Something like that. He was GRU, and he was a counterintelligence agent during the same time that I was, and he was over there signing books, and I went up to him and I wanted his autograph, and you know, and so and a friend of mine's like, "You want a picture with him?" I'm like, "No." I'll take your autograph and I'll take the book. But I whispered to him, I said, I was a counterintelligence agent while you were an active agent. And he goes, comrade, no. And he said, colleague. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, what is going on with your country? And he just said, you know, you just heard what he said, that it was very expensive. And he goes, we're not training them very well. And you guys aren't paying attention. What is going on? And I said, I think you hit it. We're not paying attention. We're not, we're too easygoing. We're not paying attention. We think everybody's friendly and nice up front until you prove us wrong. And he goes, yeah, that's going to be your problem. You know, and he was on, and we'll go over one of the articles, but you've got to have heard what was recently coming out in the news. The young woman was honest about, I work for the Russian government. Oh, come closer to us in the NRA. Whatever, you know. Anyway, but, yeah, if you pay, it's interesting. But this is the couple that that show, The Americans, was really about. She's the accountant. He was a stay-at-home dad. They have pictures of him. I've seen the video. They have pictures of him in New York in the subway system as he's going up the stairs. Someone else is coming down, and their hands are passing each other, and that's the handoff. That was the passing of information. He had the free time during the day to go do all of this, meet in parks, put stuff in trash cans, stick things underneath stools. You know, and technically, I have to have, for me to charge you with espionage, I have to have you dropping it off, and I have to have the other side picking it up. So, you know, and there's signals, you know, trash can markings, and da-da-da-da-da, all that stuff. Yeah, there you go. Love and life, right? Coors Light. But I'll be honest with you, I tried to watch the show The Americans, and I watched one episode, and I can't watch anymore. It's true. The episode they were talking about was the one where, as an agent, I was married at the time, and I had to tell him, I can't tell you where I'm going, I don't know when I'll be back, but, and I can't tell you, you know, why. And he's like, you know, And so that was the episode they were talking about, and how the family was struggling with the agent, you know, I got to go do something, but I can't tell my kids what I'm doing. I can't tell my friends what I'm doing, that kind of thing. And I felt exposed. The stuff in the show is right. It's apparently an ex-CIA officer that is writing the articles. So he's using true stuff. So it's a very good show, and it's really kind of like, that stuff that I was, you know, you're showing everybody how to do this, quit. You know, don't make it easy. And it is. You just have to be good at it, you know. Don't get caught. Don't get caught, right? Anybody remember that?
Yeah.
All right, that ages some of us, right? But this was interesting. This was an interview with a spy master in Russian. When I was going through the coursework and the counterintelligence work, they didn't tell us one of these things, but this I thought was very interesting. This was what a GRU Russian was saying. This is why we should spy, technically, because it enables us to understand your true intentions. We also understand when you're willing to fight or when you're simply puffing up your cheeks. And I'm like, all right, I like that philosophy. I just don't like how you go about doing it and you know, stealing our information and using it against us. But I thought that was kind of an interesting. He said this is an aspect of spying that is often overlooked. I'm like, yeah, that is true, because I don't think about that. But and you know, North Korea, if warfare was about bullets and oil, until now, warfare in the 21st century is about information. That's what he told his commanders. And if you've noticed how much North Korea has now been behind a lot of things, I've been extremely amazed at how skilled they're getting, how good they're getting. One of the things I was told about North Korea, the reason why they probably did the SWIFT hack is North Korea doesn't sell a GDP. They don't make money in their own country, so they have to steal it. So they go after banks and financial institutions. So that's right now, and they're getting very good at what they're doing. And if I understand it right, a lot of them are not physically in North Korea doing their hacking. They're probably on the coast of China. So if you see the IP addresses coming out of China, that's what I heard. In the old days, in the 80s, trust but verify, we all probably still say that today. You know, that's a Russian proverb. And when Gorbachev and Reagan met, Reagan wanted to learn some Russian, so that's the quote he kept learning in Russian, and he kept saying it to Gorbachev so much that it upset him. I'm getting tired of you saying that to me. But, you know, they were trying to tear down the Berlin Wall, trying to merge the sides. But what I find interesting in 2017, I found don't trust and still verify using, you know, as a blockchain. And I'm not saying blockchain solves espionage, okay? We think it solves a lot of things, but it is not solving espionage and spying. But I like the way that it verifies the data that it receives from one another to ensure its security. So it's don't trust and still verify. So that's the kind of the world that we lived in. I think it's because of our social media, our internet access. I physically do not have to rob a bank anymore. I just do it over the internet. I physically don't have to meet you. I social engineer you or whatever, strike up a relationship with you online. And this is what was just recent. I had to add this. The accused Russian spy, Maria Butina, she's the one who freely admitted when she's drunk, I'm Russian, and I'm here doing what I'm doing. And everybody ignored it and kept inviting her still to the parties. Guys, you're easy. I'm sorry. This is Feinstein. She had a 20-year driver. They just now charged him with espionage. He's Chinese. 20 years he was her driver. They just now did it, I think, like this summer, like a couple months ago. It's just how easy. MICE is the motives this is what the CIA uses to train everybody on motives of why people do espionage. Why you might do it. Money, ideology, compromise, coercion, blackmail, ego, and extortion. It's amazing that some people would still do it just for ego, but most of the time people are going to do it. You combine these, but we'll go over some of this. But this, if you see this, beware of spies, this came out in World War II. This isn't new. It's still been around. Money. The biggest motivator is money. I'm quoting this, Stasi Super Agent Hall. He was a chief warrant officer in the Army. The case that they're talking about here was during the Cold War, Project Trojan. He had signals intelligence for that, and he gave it away for money. He explained his lifestyle, that he inherited it from an aunt, $30,000 for per the secret that he gave away. I investigated somebody for the exact same thing, charged him with it, had to interview him, his lawyer, which was a JAG officer. We're all in BDUs, and the JAG officer's like, don't answer that, don't answer that. And I'm like, come on, we're on the same side. I want to understand why he shipped 25 classified CD, and this is the days of diskettes. He shipped 25 of these in his household goods when he left Germany and came back to the United States. These were signals intelligence that he had during Gulf Storm 1. And he's had them in his household goods. And we served him a warrant. We got a heads up that it was coming. This was at Fort Hood, Texas, where I was stationed. MPs were there. He said, sure, you can check my stuff. And they came. He had a gym bag full of it. I don't know how that got in there. It came out of your office. I don't know how it got in there. But his job, he was a signals officer for the whole Corps of Germany. He was a warrant officer, been doing it for 25 years. I don't know how that got in there. That's his job. That was his everyday job. That's the only job he had. I don't know how it got in there. NSA showed up and took it, and they did their stuff to it, and they gave us a copy of it so we could see what was in it. So when I was doing my interrogation, when I was doing my discussions with him, with Jack sitting there, he spoke English, I did too, so it was easy. But anyway, he said he didn't know. He didn't know how that got in his bags. And because I couldn't, and I did my investigation, his German wife didn't come with him to the States. She stayed in Germany, and he was supposed to retire. And so, but we never had where he handed off the information to an entity of another country. So his charge of espionage got downgraded, mishandling classified information. He got an Article 15, and they retired him out of the military. And at the same time I was investigating him, he was also being investigated because he shipped back Iraqi weapons in a diplomatic pouch, which avoids X-ray and scrutiny, because he was going to sell them when he got back to the States. And he got an Article 15 for that. So, but I'm like, wow, we're all doing it right. Favorite John Walker, he was big while I was in because he got tried while I was in, and while it's because of him, he got life in prison. Because of what he did for 18 years in the Navy, President Reagan changed your sentencing. You can get the death penalty now. Not just life in prison, but you can get the death penalty because of what he did. The death penalty wasn't available. What he did, people did die. Because he gave his secrets. Now his defense, he said, I gave my information to Russia. I couldn't help it that they gave it to somebody we were in war with, Vietnam. They did it. But he did it for 18 years. He recruited his son. His son went into the Navy. He was giving him information. He recruited his brother. He tried to recruit his best friend. He tried to recruit his daughter. She was in the Army. She turned him into the FBI. His wife turned him in 3 times to the FBI. And they're saying the reason why that he got caught was his problems with his wife. Right. But he did it for money. And he also did it, he did it for ego, and the Russians were like trying to tell him, you got to calm that money spending down. You're giving yourself away. Your lavish lifestyle is going to give you away. Aldrich Ames, a CIA employee, spied for 9 years. He's serving life in prison. He married a Colombian spy. The KGB was so excited about him and his wife getting married, they gave them a $2 million wedding present. That's how good he was. The problem is, what he did, everybody that he exposed as undercover working in Moscow, they seem to have disappeared off the planet of the Earth when they were in Russia. Russia doesn't take it too kindly when a Russian person turns in their own country and spies on them. They kind of, so what he exposed got people killed. Part of the classified thing that you have, and we'll go over it in a little bit, it's not so much the information, it's so much how we got it. If you're the only source of that information and I expose the information, I just expose you too. Don't forget that. So if you want to expose information, don't forget you might be getting somebody hurt on the other end who gave us that information. Ideology. This one is really hard for me to go by because I want the money, man. You know, if I'm going to do this and take my country down, I want more than just because I don't like what you're doing. But this is what she did. She was a DIA analyst. She didn't like what we were doing to Cuba. This just happened in the last 5 years. She got a She was going to get a 25-year prison sentence, and to keep it out of the news, they, fired her. But they didn't want people to know to avoid the publicity of a trial. She got probation. Unfortunately, this husband and wife were spying for Cuba too. He got life in prison. She got 6 years. Political opinions, Recognize these people?
Yeah.
Reality Winner. That is her name. It is really her name, Reality Winner. Her parents knew that. If you read the article on her, their last name is Winner, and they deliberately named her Reality. She got 6 years in prison, which she did. And I gave this talk at a school down in Georgia, and there was a young man at a college, University of Georgia, and he goes, I was in the hometown with her. We went to school together. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you now. Don't follow in her footsteps, or but yeah, I now he's her. Everybody's hero. It's not mine. He's probably never going to set foot back in this country again. Probably never alive. But if he does set foot in this country, he should be charged with espionage. I'm hoping they'll charge him with that instead of the other. Because he freely admits, I gave it away. The country freely admits they have it. So I think that proves the crossing of the information, doesn't it? I think that proves the charge of espionage will be given to him, and he can get the death penalty. Putin, I've done nothing wrong. That's what Snowden says. I've done nothing wrong. I'll be honest with you. I'd be more upset. I do not be upset at NSA at what they're doing. We asked them to do this after 9/11. Protect this country better. All right, we're doing it, so don't get pissed off. I'm not selling your information. Now, who is selling it? Facebook. Didn't you just realize that? Facebook, Google, Amazon, they are collecting that information and they are selling it. So don't be pissed off at the NSA at what they're doing. I'm a little passionate about that. Be pissed off at Google and Amazon and get pissed off at Facebook. And I can tell you this much, Facebook is asking businesses to give information on you. I saw the memo. I'm surprised at what Facebook was asking a business to give just for a marketing effort. You'll be pissed when you find out if it ever makes it into the news. You'll be pissed. Coercion or, I just want to, it's the sex, blackmail, whatever. Threatening to release embarrassing information like the young man. That was just a freaking red teamer. I'm going to, get you into a hotel room, take your pictures, threaten your marriage, ruin your job. Well-behaved women seldom make history. I kind of like that. All these women that you see here were all World War II spying for the U.S. Women are really good. And if you were, and yesterday I was sitting with heard Chris Hagney's talk, and he said, I want to hire women. You guys are so good. You guys, men and as employees, you suck. You're so easy to talk, you'll talk. But anyway, she's North Korean. That's what she looks like in South Korea. Right? This was also a sign that came out during World War II, warning them that spies are going to target you as a service member. And this is Anna Chapman. You'll see another picture of her. Honeypots. I know you guys have another term that you use honeypots on the network. Well, this is really what honeypots are: women, and they will coerce you, blackmail you. I can tell you, I have seen such a woman at the hacker conferences. I've met her. She is Russian. She is targeting you guys. I've taken her picture. I've taken her information. I've taken the information that she's passed out to young men to get them to have a relationship with her, and I've handed it over. They're looking into it right now. But I personally don't think she's spying so much as I think she's a scout. She's targeting you, learning about you. What kind of access do you have? Where do you work? Okay. What about you? Where do you work? Okay. And so she's working away, but she's beautiful. She knows computer programming. She wants to work for the Federal Reserve Bank. But she does stripping and sells drugs on the side. Yeah, I really see how that goes together. And while she was with young man, she's doing a selfie in the bathroom to one of his friends. So be on the lookout. There's Anna Chapman. She is a hero in Russia. She was one of the 10 illegals that we sent back. She has her own talk show, or she did. I'm not sure if she still does. Who's going to say no to that? Biden. Biden was sad when she left. Our vice president, and he was vice president when she left. So that's how close she was. The oldest trick in the book never stops working. Spy agencies continue to use seduction as an effective method of espionage. See if this starts playing. Come on.
From this day forward, you will become sparrows.
Sparrows.
Weapons in a global struggle for power.
Every human being is a puzzle of need. You must learn to intuit what is missing, become the missing piece, and they will give you anything. Take off your clothes. Your body belongs to the state. Since your birth, the state nourished it. Now the state asks something in return. You must learn to sacrifice for a higher purpose. To push yourself beyond all limitation and forget the sentimental morality with which you were raised.
From this day
Put
forward,
that. As a woman, I'll be honest with you, as a counterintelligence agent, I was not asked to do that kind of thing. But I have to admit, I think what she was telling her is exactly how they get the Russian women to do it. The state owns you, the state trains you, you owe the state back. That has been a communist manifesto for years. That is, I mean, since it started. The state owns you, the state gives you everything, you owe the state back. And I had a woman come up to me after one of the times I spoke, and she goes, I just don't believe women would do that. I'm like, they do. And as most women, and you don't really know most of the women that are doing the spying. Most of them keep it a secret, which they should, right? But that's one reason I think that's what they tell them. Also, if you'll also notice the OPM hack, this is something that concerns me, is because I had a security clearance. And the OPM hack is where they got all of my information on my background investigation. Well, they didn't just get mine, they got my children. My spouse, my neighbors, my friends, my co-workers, every place I work. They have all that information. Start paying attention how many Chinese people are getting caught spying in the next few years. They've already started. And part of that, what they do is if you have, the OPM also says where I worked and why I have classified information. So they know, oh, you work for NSA and your family members are still back in China. So they're going to put pressure on you to steal secrets so I don't kill your family members that are still back behind. You're going to start seeing more and more of this coming out. That's why I think the GRU officer is like, you guys, we're not training, the spies don't have to be trained very hard. I just have to blackmail you. And they're getting caught. But you already did your service when you handed over the information. They don't care that you got caught. They just wanted the information that you had access to. And don't forget, it's not just because if you're a government employee, but it could be who you work for. It doesn't have to be for a government entity like Uber was doing it. But this, I brought this up here because, you know, this is the part that I've noticed the most. She went to Britain and married a British man so she could get her citizenship. He's now unexpectedly passed away this past year. Interesting enough. But she divorced him as soon as they got married. And you'll hear this in another part of it. And so the the double agent that was released, that got they poisoned him. Yeah, and his daughter, is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was part of the illegals program. They switched him. She got sent over, and they released him, kind of thing. So that's why I brought it up. But she's now, because, Russian spy that I am. I'm going to urge Putin to sink UK ships that are coming in to, make the West come to their senses. This is how, she now has that kind of influence in Russia, right? This is one of the favorite. I like this one, and I know you can't see it. And don't worry trying to read it. I don't want to. Everyone, you got too many words up there. Don't try and read it. The problem is Clayton Lone Tree. He was a Marine Corps guard at the American Embassy in Russia. He, on one day going home from work on the train, a beautiful woman struck up a conversation with him. They ended up striking up a friendship. I don't know why he decided to give her the building plans. We were building a consulate in Moscow, the U.S. was. He shared that with her, gave her the schematics of the architect of what it was. When they finally finished building it, I don't know why they didn't do this sooner, but they found bugs in every single wall, at least 2 bugs in every wall, some in the floors and in the ceiling of every single room in the consulate. They had to go rebuild it somewhere else because of what he did, because he made a friendship with somebody on the train. But she did tell him, eventually, I want you to meet somebody else. Well, that was her handler. And then he decided to give them secrets. And I don't know how long the relationship lasted. He didn't tell anybody until he got reassigned to Austria, and his conscience told him he needed to tell his boss that he had given him the secrets of the American embassy in Moscow, and then they found out they had to go build a new one and get out of it. This one I thought was very interesting. Iranian hackers, if you, Mia asked, you guys read about any of this in the past year? They stole a young woman's Facebook persona profile, her pictures, her postings. They stole that, and they started targeting middle-aged men who worked as technicians or engineers in the Middle East. Some of those were in addition to Israel, India, and the United States. She was targeting these specific men, and eventually, when she got a relationship talking with them, she would share photos and have them click on the photo. That downloaded stuff onto their computers, and that was how they were collecting information. I thought it was really interesting that it was Iranian hackers that did this, considering their, their religion and women and whatnot, but that's how they used it against you. They understand your weakness. Now this one, I love this one. This one, I can't say that any secrets were given out. I know people that worked with Petraeus. What a name. But they said he's a... Yeah, no, I know. That they said he was a great general in the military, which is really interesting. And I'll tell you at the end, you're going to hear at the end why I call this interesting. These two stuck up a relationship. She was his biographer. She was a West Point graduate. She and he were sharing an email account. They weren't actually hitting send. There's drafts, right? Just keep it in the draft folder. So there's no sending, so they could talk to each other this way. For somehow or another, she got mad at her. And she goes, leave my guy alone. Jealous of her closeness to Petraeus, anonymously she was sending her emails. She also had a relationship with this general. These guys are all down at SOCOM, down in Tampa. And Jill Kelly, is a social liaison at MacDill Air Force Base. She's not in the military, neither is her husband. Has no relationship other than she lives near MacDill. She has a lot of parties, and she invites generals to it, of our military, to the parties. So now, why did she think she was doing something? Well, I'll give you my theory on that in a minute. But so she sent her threatening email, leave my guy alone. And because she was doing stuff with him. So she got concerned about the threatening email she was getting, so she sent it to her friend, FBI agent over here, who was sending her pics of his abs. And I can tell you as an agent, damn it, I never got any. I didn't know. But she told him, hey, somebody is threatening me. I don't like it. So he started an investigation, and he uncovered all the affairs that were going on between him and her. He lost his job. Nobody knows, nobody paying attention. She's first-generation Lebanese. But she's in a social liaison. They let her on post without a sticker. Without a post sticker. She doesn't have any reason. She doesn't have a job on post. Her husband's a doctor in the outside community, outside of post. Neither one of them have anything to do with the military. Because she's so friendly and nice, we let her on post. Well, anyway. I just thought that was kind of interesting, and his name is Petraeus. So anyway. You're going to like this one. This is a French diplomat. This man right here struck up a relationship with this right here, who is this right there, for 18 years. He never had a sex change, but he convinced him that he gave birth to a child. They had a relationship for a few years, and he had to go back to China. And so while he was over there, he went to, the state was supporting all this, so they gave him an orphan, a 4-year-old orphan, gave him the orphan, told him to go back to France. He went back to France and said, this is your son. I gave birth to your son while we were separated. He adopted the son, never questioned that this was a man with no sex change, but he thought that was his son. Okay. No, I can't tell you how he thought they had sex. I heard it was out in hallways and stuff. But this is Madame Butterfly. The whole play is about this relationship. But this is him. And during, you notice that I was really hounded on the women being your targets. But after World War II, a lot of the East German spies didn't have anything to do. And there was a lot of West German women that were widows because their husbands died in the war. So the East Germans sent them to West Germany and they married them. So they, okay, you got it right. Okay. Ego, ego and pride is motivating spies to observe. It's hard to demonstrate. Robert Hansen, he did it, and I'll show you in a minute, but he did it because he was being passed over promotion. He was an FBI agent and he spied. So I'm going to show everybody how good I am. You passed me over, so I'll spy. I'm FBI, I can do it. Family of spies, this is also another issue with the Walker. The character traits that made him such a successful spy for us, this is Russia talking, made him a successful spy were also the main reasons that led to his capture. The truth will come out in such men if your ego. But part of their personality is not to listen to our warnings. Is some of the ego and the spying is, and they were told, tone it down, stop, take it easier, and he got caught. And there's your Hansen. Money was a way to keep the score and a trigger, but not my driver for why I did it. You passed me over and you weren't appreciating the work I was doing as an FBI agent, so I spied. He's got life in prison. This is the one I like. BRICS, and I know we're Americans right now, but it was interesting. This young woman right here is Russian. She went to Britain, like Anna Chapman did. She wanted to marry somebody to get her British citizenship. So she found somebody twice her age who happened to be 40. She married him, and then she wanted a quick divorce. After they'd been married for 3 months, we couldn't get along. So she approached this man, and he's been charged too, because he gives quick divorces. And he likes the young women. She married him. This is Aaron Banks. If you look him up, he's a gazillionaire in Britain who's lost his money, and all of a sudden now he has a whole bunch of gazillions dollars, and now he is supporting BRICS. These two are married. His Russian wife. I suspect that's where his money is coming from. Kind of interesting. But this is a quote that came from the articles that talked about the women that are used. They're all the same type, long-legged, good-looking blondes, never older than 25. They're fluent in French, English, and often German, and with a higher education. Remember I told you about the young woman that was targeting some of you here in the conferences? She knows 3 or 4 languages. Like I said, she also knows computer programming. And she's tall, long-legged, and beautiful. I got a picture of her. Sorry, she went, never mind. But yeah, she's beautiful. And she speaks really good English. That's true.
I'm gay and I didn't notice it either. So
I was showing this at work and to my coworkers, and there was a young woman in the room. She goes, "I didn't see King Kong either." And she goes, and I don't mean anything by it. I'm like, But the biggest thing, I'm not an agent anymore, so if you suspect you're being targeted, don't call me. Don't tell me, because I'm going to tell you to go call the FBI. If you suspect something like this is happening to you, and I've even talked to CISOs, do they want to be told if you think that maybe you're a red teamer or a pen tester is targeting the CISO's like, I don't want to be told. And he's probably something. So I'm like, you know what? If a red teamer is going to go put me in a hotel room and compromise me that way, I am going to call the FBI on your happy self. If you're going to take that kind of tactic against me, I am going to call the FBI. I'm going to turn your happy self in. I hope you have a get-out-of-jail-free card because you're trying to blackmail me. And if that's what a red team company does or a pen test company wants to do to you, turn their happy self in. Please. But one of the bigger things is that it doesn't necessarily mean that you are being targeted. It could be a given situation might need further examination. This is a quote that the FBI, that I'm quoting there. And it could be, you know, that someone's, like I said, I think some people are doing it for scouting, to see if you're a good potential target before they turn you in or blackmail you, coerce you, or, you know, take you out.